Hello, and welcome to the Indie Nook. It's primarily an indie games podcast, but we chat about all things indie. I'm your host, Blake McKean, and today I'd like to talk to you about an indie showcase that happened earlier this week, called Day of the Devs. But before I get into that, I wanted to briefly talk about a thought I had in regards to Citizen Sleeper, which was the game I talked about in episode 0. One of my favorite places in the game is a food stand, and the owner of this food stand's name is Emphas. And they're a very striking character. They're portrayed to be very muscular and large. They're kind and soft-spoken, kind of like a gentle giant. The first time you encounter them, you probably don't have much money to spare, and he's a cook. So he says you can eat for free this time, but you have to pay by telling me a story. And you tell him a story about your past and how you get there. And Emphas is very empathetic, and you have a good dialogue, and you go back to him more and more. And the dialogues each time when you encounter him, they're very intriguing, and you want to know more. But every time you go, he asks you about you, and you end up telling him more about you, and you get to kind of learn your place within the story. And after a while, he asks you to bring him some ingredients. And you do, and he cooks you a meal. Or a similar meal from his homeworld. Or a meal that is similar to one from his homeworld. And you do this twice. And at the end of the quest line, which I won't spoil, but you get to learn about him. And it's very rewarding, and it kind of takes place over, the whole course of the game. I mean, at the beginning, you kind of get the dialogue, and the items that he needs you to bring are kind of like a mid-game item, and then like a late-game item. And so the questline kind of happens throughout the game, and it's very well-paced, and it's very rewarding. And I just wanted to bring it up, because after completing this questline, I just thought it was brilliant. And I thought it was an incredible example of how your intrigue and natural curiosity to another was just a great device to learn more about yourself in this world. And because both sides are so intriguing, it's just awesome when you tell Emphas your story, and then in the end you learn yours. And I just thought it was an incredible example of brilliant game design, where you learn just through natural play more about yourself and more about the world and about others as well. So that was Citizen Sleeper. I talk about it in episode 0 and go a little bit more into depth on it. And just so happy that I picked that game up. Gosh, it's incredible. Definitely play it if you haven't. But I kind of wanted to move on to the topic of the show. And this week there was an indie showcase of sorts called Day of the Devs. And this is published by Double Fine and I Am 8-Bit in partnership with Summer Game Fest. And I guess this is a quote from them. Day of the Devs began in 2012 as a collaboration between Double Fine and I Am 8-Bit with the purpose of shining the spotlight on great indie games. Since then, the event has showcased over 50 games, both in person and in online events. And I kind of just wanted to share my thoughts and go over some of the highlights for me. I mean, they showed off a lot of games that I definitely recommend watching it for yourself if you're interested. Because, I mean, the games that spoke to me aren't necessarily going to speak to you. So these are just the ones that I wanted to highlight that I added to my Steam wishlist. I guess overall I really enjoyed it, and it's absolutely worth watching. It's very streamlined, and I thought it was very professional for a showcase of this kind. And it was just a great way to showcase some incredible looking indies. But yeah, so I guess let's start off. The first one that spoke to me was Hyper Light Breaker. And I've kind of talked about this and my, excitement towards this on the other podcast that I do, the Sticky Buttons podcast. And both me and Brandon, we absolutely loved Hyper Light Drifter. Actually, I may have even said the wrong game. The new game is called Hyper Light Breaker. I'm not sure if I said that, but their previous game is called Hyper Light Drifter, and we both loved it. I personally, I feel like I had like a semi-religious experience playing that game. So it getting a sequel is very exciting. They did make a game in between called Solar Ash, and I think at some point we do, both Brandon and myself, plan on bringing that to the Sticky Buns podcast. But it, I don't know when that's going to happen. So, Hyperlight Breaker, very excited for it. I do want to play Solar Ash before Hyperlight Breaker comes out, but it's not going to come out for a while. It kind of seems that early access is going to be in early 2024. So I'm very excited about that. It's supposed to be kind of a third-person action roguelite. I guess it can be co-op and it has online functionality, but I guess that there's also a solo element to it as well. So very excited for that one. The next one is called Wizard with a Gun, and this actually has a demo available on Steam, so I'm planning on checking this out on my Steam Deck. But it also looks kind of interesting. So it's also an action roguelike, but it is kind of an isometric view, and it kind of looks like you just have guns. But it kind of looks like you can craft guns that have like different elemental and magic effects to it, hence the wizard with a gun. The art style looked very cool, and I don't know, I was just really interested in this. I thought it was kind of an intriguing showcase, so I'm definitely going to check out the demo at the very least. And I guess the next game, which this one I thought was really interesting, this is called Beastie Ball. And again, there were other games in this showcase, but I'm just kind of highlighting the ones that I put on my wish list. Beastie Ball. Now, this is cool because this is from the same team that made Chicory, which I did talk about on the Sticky Buns podcast. That's kind of like a Zelda-like or a Zelda-like game where it's kind of an isometric action game. Isometric puzzle action game, and all of the color's been removed from the world. And through your actions, you're painting the world and bringing color to it. So it's got a really great message to it, and I really enjoyed that. I mean, obviously, it's very beautiful. So that, I mean, I'm immediately interested just because it's the team that did that. But it's kind of looks like their take on the Pokemon creature collector pocket monsters formula, and I guess I'm kind of saying it like that because I mean, I'm a huge Pokemon fan. If you listen to the Sticky Buns podcast, you'll know that both Brandon and myself are huge Pokemon fans. But this, I mean, I guess I'll just say I have not really enjoyed the last game that they did. I was very excited for it, and it didn't click with me. I mean, obviously the performance. It was mostly due to the performance of it. I just don't think that game was finished, and in retrospect, I think it may have been a little bit more critical on, oh my gosh, Legends Arceus than maybe I should have. I mean, that was a very cool game. I don't know. We talk about Pokemon a lot, but this is very different, and I think that this might actually solve some of the problems that I've had with it. And I feel like with Pokemon like games, it's very hard to get into them. I think just because of the creatures, like you want to, feel a connection to the creature. So I think the creature and character design is very, very essential in this kind of game, at least for me to get interested in it. And I think that what they're trying to do here with their gameplay looks extremely interesting as well, and I think I'm going to check it out. So it's a turn-based kind of game, but instead of collecting creatures, you try and build bonds with the ones that you have. So it kind of looks like it might be more of because you have like more of an intimate experience with your besties or the creatures that you encounter throughout the world. And instead of being a turn-based combat, it kind of looks like it's a turn-based kind of like take on volleyball. So it's, Beastie Ball, so it's kind of like your best friend Beast mixed with volleyball. So I think it's very cleverly named Beastie Ball. And it kind of looks like you're kind of just playing volleyball through this turn-based combat. I mean, it's like a game, so there's no like fainting, and I think that it's just really interesting. I mean, from the screenshots of it, it looks like the beasties kind of follow you around. It's one thing that everybody's been asking Pokemon to do is like, hey, why can't they just follow me? Why can't they just, be outside of their ball and interact with me inside the world? And I mean, I'm really excited for this because I think that if they can nail it, there's a lot of cool things that I think fans would want, myself included, want something more from a Pokemon experience that they just have not done. And I think that it's really cool that an indie team is like, hey, it kind of seems like Pokemon's taken a couple steps backwards. Like, let's push the genre forward. And especially from a team that has done some incredible games before, I'm super interested. So that's Beastie Ball. The next one, I've seen this game a ton. So this is not the first time I've seen this game. This game is called Hauntii, spelled Hauntii. And I've seen this game a ton on Twitter. It had a Kickstarter. I saw it on Kickstarter as well, and I almost backed it. And because the art style is very cool, but for some reason, I just didn't. I think that this game has never, if you just kind of see like a 20-second clip of this gameplay, or you kind of just see some screenshots of it, or like a GIF of the game, like you're immediately interested because it has a very striking hand-drawn art style, and it's kind of not necessarily black and white, but it's very much two colors. So like sometimes it's black and red, or black and blue, or black and beige, or black and cream, and it kind of, it's isometric and like absolutely beautiful hand-drawn world, and it's kind of like a puzzle game, like an isometric puzzle game. But I have never, before this showcase, I have never been interested in it, and I've watched trailers, and I do not think that this game does a good job if you just are of explaining what it is when you just watch a trailer. So I absolutely recommend watching the Day of the Devs portion of this game if you're interested, because the art style is very cool. But again, I just feel like even if you go to the Steam page and watch the trailer, I think it does not really explain what this game is, and I've never really quite understood it until I watched this, this presentation that they have, and there's, somebody from the development team kind of talking about it, and I think that I got a lot better grasp on what this game is, and I'm more interested now than I ever have been. So even though I've seen it before, I've seen it a couple times, I had almost written it off, like this isn't for me, just because it is a little bit dark. It kind of looks like, I'll do my best to describe it, but I think they do a better job in the showcase. So it kind of looks like you haunt certain objects, and those objects let you interact with the world, and that's how you solve puzzles. So I think that's kind of how I would describe it, just from seeing it. But you are kind of like a ghost, kind of like a spirit. So it is very spooky and ethereal. That's why everything's like two colors, either a color and black. And it's very spooky, but it is very striking. So I've seen this game before. I absolutely love the art style, but I wasn't necessarily interested before until I saw this. So definitely check out that presentation. And maybe I just missed something just watching the trailers on Steam. So I think that's an interesting contrast there. So that's Hauntii. Definitely interested in seeing that come out, and seeing how it reviews as well. So the next game, I've kind of been thinking about this one a little bit, and I added it to my wish list. I don't know if I'm gonna check this one out actually. The more I think about it, I'm thinking that it might not work out, but I think it's a cool concept. So it's called Hellskate. And that's Hellskate with one L, and it's it's kind of like a Tony Hawk roguelike, but you have like a weird hammer, and it looks like you get like a sword, and you kind of have like you're kind of going around this open world, kind of like the early Tony Hawk games, and I guess it's like you fight demons, kind of in melee looking combat. I guess it's kind of like melee. It almost kind of looks like melee and rhythm combat. Because if you like these skater games, you do kind of have to get into a rhythm with them. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to see how it plays. It almost kind of at first I was like, okay, sign me up. Like the art style's cool. But it kind of looks like a little bit of a throwback, but it's certainly interesting. And I was like, all right, sign me up for it. But then now I'm kind of thinking, how are they gonna do that? How would that play? How would that play with I guess doing this Tony Hawk movement, but then like looks like you can do all the same tricks that you could do in a Tony Hawk, and then you have to like do combat on top of that. I don't know. I hope they pull it off. I hope it works. But now I'm kind of at first I was just so excited, and I'm like, I don't know if that's gonna work. So I guess we'll see. But that's Hellscape, and I actually I jumped into another game. Oh my gosh, what's it called? It's called Roller Drome, which is kind of a similar concept. It's kind of like Tony Hawk, but you're on roller skates, and then you are kind of doing like a arena style first person or third person shooting combat, and that works really well. But there is a very high. They made it so it's a very high skill ceiling, so it can be very complicated, and it really gets hard very quickly. So it's interesting. Just the contrast of how I like loved Ollie Ollie World, but then the same developers helped with Roller Drome. I didn't love it as much, so I guess I'm just kind of interested. I'm interested to see another take on this, because again that was like third person shooting, and this is melee combat. So interested to see that, but I don't know. I hope they pull it off. The next one that I thought was interesting is called Summerhill. Now, this developer studio, I guess they've made some other mobile games. Here, I guess the publisher is called Land and Sea. Here, let me see what their other games are. Okay, so this is the same team that did Alto's Adventure and Alto's Odyssey. Now, I've played a little bit of Alto's Odyssey on the iPhone, and I thought it was really incredible. It's kind of just all movement, and there's really like no stakes. It's kind of just like you're just skating through beautiful landscapes. Actually, it's kind of like you're surfing like a surfboard on like sand, and the music's great. Actually, the music is one of the best parts of it, and those games are really fun. This game, I was really in. I think if I had just saw a trailer, I wouldn't be as interested. But they had an amazing presentation, and one of the lead, I guess, designers and developers kind of got on and talked about the game, and I just now that the more I think about it, the more I think it's going to be extremely interesting. And this game is called Summerhill, and it kind of looks like it's going to be, or I guess actually this is how they describe it: a story-driven puzzle game where you play as a young shepherd and their dog. Actually, this is also from them as well. Journey across an ancient pastoral landscape and reunite your scattered flock and unearth the mysteries of a long-forgotten past. So that's Summerhill. Man, I'm really excited for this. It kind of looks like as they say, it kind of looks like you're a shepherd and you have like a flock of sheep and you kind of have to herd them with your dog. And it just looks like, the world that they showed off looks so beautiful. Incredibly picturesque. And it just kind of is like a very chill concept. Like you're kind of just like gathering or kind of like herding your sheep. And in the presentation, I absolutely recommend anybody watch it. He kind of describes how shepherding of sheep has been and is an ancient profession, and just how we're all more connected to that than maybe we think we are. As it's kind of I guess as they say, unearth the mysteries of a long forgotten past. And I'm just really interested in this. I think it's kind of intriguing. I've never really seen a game like this before, and I like experiencing games that try new things. So I'm very excited for Summerhill. Definitely one I'm going to keep my eye on. The next one, It's called Mars First Logistics. I'm So I guess right off the bat, it very much has a very unique art style, kind of like Sable and Rollerdrome, which is kind of that Mobius design. I guess Mobius comics, shell shaded and pastel colors. It's very it's very interesting. I'm actually one of the trailers is kind of playing in the background. I'm kind of watching it, and it's kind of making me laugh. You play as a I guess you're kind of just creating these objects on Mars, and you have like a bunch of little tasks. Like one of them is like move pizza from point A to point B, and that's kind of what they show off in the trailer. And it kind of looks like you have like all of these robotic tools, and you can kind of craft your own silly kind of contraption to move pizza from point A to point B. And immediately when I thought of this, I was like, this is gonna be so much fun. And I don't think I ever would have picked a game up like this, but Tears of the Kingdom, part of the fun of that game is you just build these crazy contraptions and just kind of interact with the world. And this kind of looks like it's just that. And it looks like it's in a very beautiful environment, and it just looks like the scope of what you can build is truly unlimited because you get a bunch of parts. So I'm extremely excited about this game. That's called Mars First Logistics. And the last game that I wanted to talk about today is called a Viewfinder. I don't know if I'm going to personally click with this game, but I think a lot of people are really going to click with this. I'm actually going to read their description of it, but it's a puzzle game, a third-person puzzle game, and how you interact with the world, it kind of looks like you take pictures, and then you can use the pictures to kind of manipulate the environment. So this is how they describe it. Challenge perception, redefine reality, and reshape the world around you with an instant camera. Viewfinder is a new single-player game offering gamers hours of interesting and fun experiences while uncovering the mysteries left behind. I actually like how I said it better, but it really does kind of look like you take pictures and you can kind of manipulate the space around you with those pictures. So, for example, it looks like I actually watched the trailer. The trailer, it'll explain it in an instant, but it kind of looks like in one instance, like somebody picks up a painting and then they take it to a part of the map where there's nothing there, and they kind of like set the painting, and then you can walk into the painting. And in another portion, it looks like you have to traverse up to a higher elevated surface, like a higher platform, and there's nothing around you, so you kind of like take a picture of the wall and then kind of turn it and then kind of set it, and it becomes a ramp. So it kind of looks like it's going to be kind of just like a puzzle game in a third-person environment where you can manipulate the environment, kind of like Portal. But man, I'm really excited for this because this is kind of what games can do that no other medium can do, and you can just go from one setting, kind of look at a wall, and then the wall turns into a door, and it becomes something completely different. And just traversing through those kind of spaces and environments, I think really, pushes the medium forward, because it really is it's just a challenge. It's a challenge visually of how something that is kind of breaks the wall and becomes something new. So definitely check this one out. It's called Viewfinder. They have a demo available on PlayStation. I think it might just be PlayStation 5, but they do have a demo on the PlayStation ecosystem. So I just downloaded that, and I'm gonna check that out. And I hope that I enjoy it. I'm very excited just to play it and see how I feel. So that's a Viewfinder. And, I think I'm going to wrap it up there today. Definitely go check that out. Obviously there are a ton of games that I didn't cover. So that is Day of the Devs. And thank you for joining me on episode 1 of the Indie Nook. I've had a great time, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.